to episode 14 of the Woldenburn podcast. My name is Emily, and I am just so glad that you are here today. I have a few different things to share with you today, some sewing and some knitting. It's been a little bit since my previous episode, and that is because we actually ended up going on vacation. It was basically Micah's and my his side of the family big vacation for the year. We've been planning it for about 4 or 5 months at this point. Excuse me. And it finally happened here at the beginning of March. So I was hoping to get 2 episodes up on YouTube in March, but vacation kind of happened and we've been adjusting and time change. I doubt that I need to really talk about that because I'm sure that everybody feels the pain of the spring forward time change. So it's been a little bit hectic since the last episode, but I am so happy to be back and filming again today. It is a absolutely gorgeous springy day outside. The weather has definitely been warming up the last couple of weeks and I am 100% here for it. I am so excited for spring and summertime. I don't know, I feel like they just must be my favorite times of the year. I love fall time as well, but I'm not a fan of very, very cold weather. I'm here for the snow, but the rest of winter is a little bit difficult. So let's go ahead and jump right into things. I've got, like I said, some sewing, some knitting. I might talk a little bit about some books that I've been reading, and I think that's about it. I have some acquisitions that aren't really craft related, but I kind of wanted to share them on here anyway because I'm very excited about them. But yeah, let's just dive right into some knitting. So first off, there may be some projects and things that you've seen in previous episodes that don't show up on this one. I decided that for this episode, because I have a little bit of a time limit today, I decided that I'm just going to be showing the active works in progress that I have, that I've actively worked on over the last 3 weeks or whatever since the last episode. So yes. Okay, we're going to talk about this one first. I'm trying to decide because I have a couple of knitting projects that I'm very excited about. This one is one that I'm just about done with and I'm really happy with it. There's some stuff in my yarn. So, this is so close to being done. I just need to graft off with a Kitchener stitch on the toe. This is a test knit for Sarah. I believe her Instagram handle is s.knits on Instagram. And I just happened to see her profile. There was a picture that she had posted about this particular pattern and she had mentioned that she was about ready to send out a test call, so I immediately followed her and waited for that test call to go live because I just fell in love with her sock. It looked so lovely and I just loved the idea of the sock pattern, and I am just about done with my first sock, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. I will say I followed the pattern completely because this is a test knit. It uses a short row heel, which is not my favorite. I have found that short row heels just don't fit my feet particularly well. I prefer the heel flap and gusset because that just seems to fit my foot perfectly. But I wanted to follow the pattern. I was like, you know, it's been a while since I've tried a short row heel. I'll give it a try. Maybe things have changed. Maybe it was just my knitting style when I first started knitting socks. I will also say, if I'm a little bit sniffly, I think some of the seasonal allergies are kind of kicking in a little bit, and pollen and all that. The one downside of spring. So apologies in advance. But anyway, so it's this really, really lovely sock pattern. It has this folded picot edge cup. Then you knit the leg as long as you want, then you put the short row heel in, and then you knit the foot, and then it's a beautiful, simple, standard rounded toe. And it's been absolutely lovely. It was a little bit fiddly to figure out how to hold the yarn and to not hold it too tightly. I'm a continental knitter. I just had a mind blank. Continental knitter, so I hold my yarn in my left hand. And so I ended up just holding both strands of yarn in my left hand. That was the easiest way to do it. And I can't remember if I mentioned this. This is the Freckle Sock knitting pattern. And like I said, this is currently in testing. So hopefully it'll be released quite soon because I can just think of so many different versions of this. I do need to try this on. I tried it on just before I started the toe. And I'm a little bit worried that I might have to actually rip the toe out and rip out about 4 to 5 or 4 to 8 rows of the pattern part, because this just looks, I have decent sized feet, but this just looks really long. So I'm going to try it on. I feel like using the short row heel threw off my standard row count, because usually when I do a heel flap and gusset, I do about 60 rows for the foot, and then I'm almost invariably ready to put the toe in. So I just kind of did the same thing for this, and I think it might be a little bit too much. Which is the same thing, it also threw off my standard leg length for shorty socks, and it's a little short. I think it'll still work, and I'm not committed enough to go back and tear out the entire sock and redo it, so that's not happening. But yeah, so before I Kitchener stitch the toe, I am going to try it on and just check and see the length and make sure it fits. I will say I've never done this double overed picot edge cuff before, and I think I really like it. It feels pretty nice and snug, which sometimes ribbed cuffs can loosen up a lot over time, and then they just don't really feel like they hug your foot, and then the sock kind of slips around. I'm gonna take a sip of my tea really quick. This beautiful mug is a mug that we got while we were on vacation, and this was actually Micah's one. I'm borrowing it. The one we got for me from the same store was just, it's like a little pink mug, and it's so cute, but I wanted a nice big mug. And I am just drinking some red raspberry leaf tea today. It's so good. But anyway, so we'll see. I might have to rip out a little bit of the sock. So for the yarn that I'm using, I am using the dark gray color, is the Millimia Sweden Naturally Soft Sock, 75% wool, 25% polyamide, and the color Gunpowder. And it's just a nice, kind of rustic-y feeling. It's rustic feeling compared to typical merino nylon sock blends. That's kind of how I think of it in my head. It's definitely still very soft. But that's for the dark gray, and then I am using some of my own hand-dyed yarn in just this variegated cream with all these different little pops of color, which I think is so cool, because then in the sock, it just kind of goes through and you get like blue and pink. There are parts where there's like a dark, almost muddy gray, and so it kind of blends in with the other gray, but for the most part, it just pops so beautifully, and just all the different variations in the color, which is exactly what I was hoping it would do. Because I knew that I wanted to make it a very high contrast for the two of them, because I've seen a couple different socks for this test knit on Instagram, and while they're beautiful and lovely, I feel like they just don't have super high contrast yarns, which I think is, I don't know, I feel like one of the beauties of this sock pattern is just it leaves so much room for really, really making something pop. So I knew I wanted something very high contrast. And yeah, that's about it. I will say these will probably be the only socks that I actually block. I never block my hand knit socks. I just immediately want to start wearing them, so I never fuss about with that. But with this, because of the color work, and I don't know if you can really tell, like this is where one of the needle, I'm using double pointed needles, US size 1, and so that was where one of there's like a slight bit of unevenness between two of the needles, which I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. And I just think that blocking it will really help to even out all of the stitches, because this yarn that I'm using is a slightly different base. I can't remember for sure what the base is. I don't think it's merino. I don't remember. It's been so long since I've dyed yarn, and this base was one that I tried kind of close to the very beginning of dyeing yarn, so I don't remember exactly what it is. I absolutely love it. And I could look it up and find out, but I didn't think about that beforehand. So it's a slightly plumper yarn than the Millimia yarn, but I think that it'll be fine, and once I block it, it'll really, really even stuff out, and I'm curious to see if the Millimia actually kind of blooms a little bit. Yeah, because so far I really, really like it. I love working with the Millimia. I've never worked with it before, and I think that it would be lovely to knit socks or even possibly a sweater out of it. So very pleasant first experience. But that is the first work in progress that I have. Now let me show you the other two that I'm very excited about. Okay, so I have both of these in a tote bag that I made absolutely years ago, and it has ended up being one of my top favorite knitting project bags. So in here I have 2 sweater whips. And both of these have been cast on since the last time I filmed the podcast, because I just couldn't help myself. So, what should we want to talk about first? Let's talk about the lofoten sweater. Let me get this one. It's a little bit scrunched up from being in this bag. Make sure I'm not losing any stitches here. Whoop. Okay, no, we're good. Alright, it's gonna look a little bit funny because I'm knitting in the round and I have a small needle, or a needle cord so that I can knit in the round. But this is the lofoten sweater by Emily of the Blue Mouse Knits, and I am so in love with this. I love both of these sweaters. Honestly, these have gotten the most love over the last almost month at this point, and I've just been knitting on them so much, which is kind of funny because they're both at very similar stages. So yes, like I said, this is the lofoten sweater, which is just this beautiful round yoke sweater with this sort of textured lace design in the yoke, and then it has some fading. It goes into some different colors, and oh, just look at how that goes. Oh my goodness. I love this so much. So this sweater, both of these sweater projects, I have several like single skeins of yarn that are left over from when I was hand dyeing yarn. And they were all like favorite colorways that I had made that I saved. But I didn't have any like full sweater quantities of any of these colorways. And so I knew that I was going to have to do some type of fading or multiple colors in one sweater project. So that was why I picked both of these. And let me show you. So I've got this beautiful tweedy gold yellow yarn. It's coming out a bit more brilliant than it is in real life. It's a little bit more faded than that. And then this. And I love this so much, and this color combination makes me so happy. So this particular yarn, I have 2 skeins of this yarn, which was like so close to being enough for a sweater, but just 1 skein short. And so I decided that I'm going to do it in the lofoten sweater. Now typically with the lofoten sweater, or the way that it was designed, it was designed for 3 colors, but I'm planning to just do 2 colors. So I'm going to have this yellow gold in the yoke, and then this beautiful variegated, it's got oranges and blues and greens and yellows. That's going to be for the rest of the body. So instead of having a 3rd color, it'll just be those 2. And I was so excited when it got to the point to start adding in the colored yarn. I think it just looks so good, like the way that it pops out. And again, like I said, it is a little more faded in real life than it's showing on the camera. So it's a little more subdued. Like there it looks super punchy for both colors. But, I'm just so pleased with how it's turning out, and I'm really close to being able to separate for the sleeves, but I kind of got distracted by my other project. And I ended up, a quick note, I ended up knitting twice as much ribbing for the neckline as the pattern called for because I want to be able to do a stitched down fold over neckband. I just love how that works on sweaters. And I'm knitting this on what size did I do? I think it's the 4th size, or the 40-inch bust. I think that's the one that I went with this time. And I'm using needles that are, I think it's 1 size down from what's called for. I didn't realize this until I started watching some of Andrea Mowry's I'll Knit If I Want To videos, but she talks about in there a number of times where people that knit continentally typically have issues with knitting quite loosely. And I've started realizing that more and more now, I think, that I knit looser than I think I do, because invariably I always go down like at least 1 needle size, if not 2, for patterns. And so she started talking about that and I was like, oh, well, that's probably why. It's probably just the way that I knit. So I'm using a US size 4 and a US size 2. The 2 is just for the ribbing. But yeah, I don't think there's too much else to say about it. This tweed base is an 85% merino and then 15% nep, which is the Tweedy Little Flex, which tweed yarn is definitely one of my like top favorite types of yarn. I would love to knit an entire sweater in a tweed yarn, like. And then the multicolored one is just a typical 75-25 superwash merino nylon. And this is on a fingering weight yarn. So there's that one. And then for sweater number 2, which is the one that I've been primarily knitting on over the last few days because I just love it so much. And it is the So Faded Sweater by Andrea Mowry. And I love these colors too. Like, this was the same thing. I only had like single skeins of all of these colors, and then I realized that they would just go together so perfectly, and I was trying to think of a sweater, and then I was just like, you've had the So Faded sweater in your Ravelry library for ages. Just knit that. So that's what I'm doing. Oh, I love it so much. So here's where we're at. I've just split for the sleeve a few inches ago, and I just cannot express how much I love it. I love these colors. I love the way that it's knitting up. Like, so again, I've got these, this beautiful peachy mauvey, or not peachy, it's a mauvey pinky, and again, it's a little more faded than it's showing up, a little more purpley rather than the kind of bright pink that it looks like it's showing. And then this one, which I just love so much. And these work together beautifully because there are bits of this kind of pinky color, or a very similar tone of pink, into this variegated one. And I love them so much. And then the third color that I'm planning to use for this sweater is actually a brown. I don't have it with me right now, but it's a brown, and there's bits of that brown in this variegated yarn. So there's where we're at. Let me show you up close. Oh, just look at how that knits up. I can't. It is exceeding all of my expectations. Like I said, I'm a little addicted to this project. I've gotten to the part now where, since I've split for the sleeves, it's just knitting and knitting and knitting and knitting, and I love it. So yeah, I'm definitely on the body part of it. I was thinking about stopping and knitting the sleeves like I did with my Gill sweater that I knit here recently, but I've decided that because I'm using different colors of yarn and I'm fading and all of that fun stuff, that I'm going to wait, and I'll finish out the body, and then I can match the faded sections on the sleeves to the body. So that's the game plan. And I'm knitting this on the called for needle sizes in the pattern, a US size 5, and then there's a US size 3 that you're supposed to use for the neckline. And again, I'm planning to do a double over folded ribbing at the neckline. And also, just like, look at this garter stitch. not gonna lie, guys, garter stitch is definitely one of my favorite knitted looks. I was looking at this and I was like, if it wasn't for this a little bit unsightly fading change between the yarns here, I would seriously consider just wearing it wrong side out, because I love just the bumpy texture of garter and reverse stockinette. It just, I love it so much. So yes, that's about all I have to say for those. Like I said, these two projects have been getting so much love from me recently. I've just been knitting away, and I cannot wait until they're done. They just look so good. And I'm really happy that I finally decided to cast them on, because for these yarns, I've ended up saving them for such a long time. I mean, it's been a few years since I was dyeing yarn. I think we're getting close to, it's not 5 years, is it? Let's see. I think I stopped in 2018. We're at basically 4 years. I think it's a little bit less than that. I think it was 2019. So we're at 3 years. It's been years, and I've had all of these skeins of yarn, and I've been saving them because I love them so much. And I just kept going back and forth on what I thought I should knit with them. And I am so glad that I finally was just like, stop. Knit sweaters with these. You're gonna love them. You're going to enjoy working on these projects so much. Just do it. And I did, and I love it so much. And I'm hoping that I'll have enough left over of some of the yarns to make some socks, because that would be magical. But that is all that I have in terms of yarny things. I haven't touched really my crochet projects at all. We're on vacation, and I really thought I was going to work on my crochet blanket that I've been making. It's actually right here, so I'll show you. It's the one that's got all of these little squares. I really thought that I was going to work on it more because we went to the beach, and so I was like, well, when I'm down at the beach, I'll work on it. It didn't happen. I just ended up reading so many books while we were on vacation, and then working on my sweaters when I felt like working on something. So I haven't done anything on either of my crocheted blanket projects, but I'll probably try and dip back into those sometime here in the next week or so, but we'll see. These sweaters, I'm telling you, they're just filling me up with all the creative joy. But I do have some sewing to talk about, so let's go ahead and dive right into that. I just got a notification that I think a very exciting package just arrived, so before we finish filming this, I might run and grab that. I'm so excited about it. Anyway, let's talk about sewing stuff. So first off, I'm wearing a newly finished object. This is my Deer & Doe. I always mess up how to pronounce this. Is it Myosotis? Something Sotis dress, and I finished this just before we ended up going on vacation. I can't really show it to you too well. You can kind of get the idea. I've got the poofy sleeves. I did the full-length skirt with the ruffle on the bottom, and then this was kind of my initial version of the pattern. I wanted to test it out, see if I liked it, and then consider making more. I love it. I will definitely be making more. So, yes, like I said, Deer & Doe pattern. I love Deer & Doe patterns. So far, every single one that I have made has been phenomenal. They've been so good. And I've made multiples of almost every one. I will say, that's not quite true. What was the dress that they came out with? And I ended up really not liking it. I don't know if that's just because of the fabric that I chose. I don't think it was the pattern. I think I just needed to rework some stuff with the pattern, and it wasn't quite the style that I was thinking it was going to be. But anyway, I digress. This is made out of a plain old simple quilting cotton that I actually got from Walmart because I saw it, and this was one of the only lemon print fabrics that I've seen that I've absolutely loved. A lot of lemon print fabrics, at least in the last couple of years, have been, they mostly have like white backgrounds and then the lemons all over it. And I'm not a huge fan of largely white fabrics when I wear them, which is kind of funny because I definitely have a piece of fabric that I'm going to be turning into a dress that is very much like all white, but that's the exception, and that was because I fell in love with that fabric and wanted it for a year before it went on clearance sale, and so I got it. So this one, I fell in love with this and I saw it at Walmart. I think it was about $5 a yard or something, so very, very, very inexpensive. And I was like, that's perfect, because I wanted to get about 4 yards of it so that I could be sure that I had enough to make my Sotis dress, because I knew that it had the gathered ruffle at the bottom. Yes, so I'm actually gonna, let me see if I can stand up and show you some of it. So there's the ruffle here at the bottom, full length. There's patch pockets in there that you can't hardly see. Ooh, okay, there we go. And it's got this lovely mandarin collar, V-neck, and then I've used snaps down the front instead of buttons because that's what I like to do. So, let me see. I made my usual size, which is a size 42. Let me think. Were there any significant changes that I made to it? Not really that I can think of. The one thing I did is there's 2 versions on the pattern. There's just a plain skirt, and then a plain gathered skirt, and then there's the gathered skirt with the tier at the bottom. Now, when you do the one that has the ruffled tier at the bottom, you're supposed to do a shorter length of the main portion of the skirt. Because I am 5'9", I did not do that. So I have found that my one complaint with Deer and Doe patterns is that they are definitely not very long. Unless it's like a maxi dress or whatever. They tend to be like decently above my knees sort of a thing, and that's just not my vibe. So I just used the full length for the plain gathered skirt and then added the tier onto the bottom of that, and it worked out beautifully. I couldn't be happier. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say about this one. I really like it. I will most likely be making another one. I have some fabric that I could use for it. I will say, I think on future versions I will leave off the ruffle. On the sleeve, while I very much like it, I tend to wear a lot of cardigans, and especially in the colder months in the wintertime, but even through the summer months, I definitely do wear a lot of cardigans, and the ruffle makes it a little difficult. Oh, I just realized I knocked down my, on my moving around, knocked down this. You get to see the plane back of my chair. Here we go. I'll put my shawl back up there. There we go. Now it looks a little bit better. Anyway, so there's that. Then the next, it's like a 99.9% finished object. So we're going to classify it as such. It is another version of the Jennifer Lauren handmade Asteria dress. That's what it is. Oh my goodness. Let me just pop the snap here so I can show it to you a little bit better. There we have it. I just finished this over the weekend, so there's still a few like odds and ends and random threads on here. I say this is 99.9% done because I haven't added the patch pockets onto it quite yet. They're all cut out and ready to go, but I didn't end up doing that, and I wanted to wear it and I was too impatient to wear it. So yes, this is the Asteria dress. I mainly used just the bodice portion for it. I kind of did my own thing with the sleeves. I did full length sleeves that then have elastic in the cuff because I'm really liking that look right now. And then I just did a basic rectangular skirt with, I did pleats in it this time, which I did, oh, you can't hardly see anything. You can kind of see it if I hold it back here. Let me see. There you go. So you can kind of see they're almost like box pleats, sort of a thing, which I really like. And this is made out of a, just a flannel. It's not even technically a flannel shirting. It's just a plain flannel that I got from Joann when they were on like super sale with their flannel, and I saw it and fell in love with it, and I got it for like $2 or $3 a yard because they were doing their crazy sale on it. And I was just like, I know exactly, like, I need this. And then when I made my other Asteria dress and it turned out so wonderfully, I was like, well, I'm just going to make another Asteria dress. So yeah, that's about all there is to say with this one. I again used snaps, these plastic snaps. They're typically, I think, used for baby or children's clothes, but I have been using these for a few years now since I discovered that they were a thing, and man, more than that, we're probably getting 5 to 7 years. Like, I've been using these types of snaps for a while, and I have had no issues with them. I absolutely love using them. You don't have to mess with sewing buttonholes if you don't feel like it. They're way faster to fasten and unfasten. So if like you're going somewhere and you're trying on clothes or whatever, piece of cake, because you can just unsnap it rather than having to unbutton everything and then button everything back up. I really recommend using them. I've had, like I said, great success with it. And these snaps were ones that I was able to purchase at Joann's, actually. The Joann's close to me, they haven't really had these in stock until, I guess, recently. And they're just these really nice matte black snaps, and they just look so good. They had a section of, like, in the baby section, they would have like just some plain white ones, and then a couple of like kind of, I guess you could say, novelty snaps. But they've never had black ones before, and I just found that out kind of recently. So I was really excited about that, that Joann's actually has some. But yeah, I think that's about it for that one. So I have 2 pretty much finished sewing objects, and I feel like they've been such successes that it's kind of reawakened, I guess. The successes, along with the burgeoning spring and warmer weather, have kind of been reawakening my sewing interest. So I did really quick want to mention another project that I'm planning to start really soon here, using this very happy, fun, bright fabric. This was some fabric I got from Joann's a few months ago, and I fell in love with it. It was in their clearance section, so there was not very much of it left. And it's this beautiful, like, linen look sort of fabric. Joann's has linen fabrics and then linen look fabrics, and I think this is a linen cotton blend. And I was originally thinking I was going to make a dress out of it, but then this idea popped into my head the other day, and I just haven't been able to get it out, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be making a hacked version of the Deer and Doe bluet dress, and I have made this dress so many times and made so many hacked versions of it. My wedding dress was a hacked version of this dress. Like, I've made a lot of versions of this. But I realized that this is the perfect dress to use for making a classic button-down shirt using this version without the cap sleeves. And then I'm going to modify it so it has that really cute tie front thing. I love those little, like, button-up tie front shirts. They're definitely one of my favorite things. And I realized that it would probably be very easy to modify this pattern to be able to do that. I just need to basically, along here along the front, just cut a tie thing, go from the waist and cut a little tie thing. So I'm very excited to see how this works, because I literally thought about this like 2 days ago, and I was just like, yes, that is absolutely perfect. Oh my goodness. So hopefully this will get cut out quite soon, because as soon as I get those pockets onto that Asteria dress, I am ready to cut out my next project. So stay tuned for that. Alright, let me see what time it is. Alright, we need to hurry this up a little bit. So, let me think. I think that's all that I have as far as creative stuff. Like I said, I had a couple things I wanted to show you because they were acquisitions. They're clothing related. So while we were on vacation, we ended up going to a shopping mall, and we stopped by the Old Navy outlet store. And I have had my wardrobe has grown increasingly limited on the things that I can wear. And so one of the things I wanted to keep an eye out for while we were out at the stores was other dresses and things that I could wear while I'm making things, basically so that I could have some variety in my wardrobe without having to like try and super quickly churn out and sew a ton of different new dresses. So I found 2 dresses at Old Navy that I am just in love with. I am so happy with them. I've worn them many times already. And they are just very simple, classic. They are a raglan sleeved dress. They have about 3/4 length sleeves that are gathered up, and they're just in this beautiful lawn sort of a fabric. They have a slight empire waist, and then they have these long full skirts that are tiered. I just love them so much. So I got this one in this print, and then I got this one. Which I just, oh my goodness, I love it so much. It's such a cute print. It's this gingham with these beautiful little yellow flowers on it, and I just love it so much. So yes, I just wanted to share those because they just were exactly what I was looking for, and I'm pretty sure that I can figure out how to hack a pattern off of them, because again, like I said, they're a very simple raglan sleeve. I think they have one bust dart. Yeah, it's one side bust dart. The top is finished with like a bias binding, and then it's just buttons on the front, and then a super simple like gathered skirt. And so I'm very possibly going to try and hack a pattern off of them because I love them so much. Yeah, so there you go. That's about all that I have to share with you today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up really quickly here, and because I've actually got to run to the store and then I have to go pick up Micah, and yes. So, yes, I'm going to go ahead and end things here. We'll talk about more stuff next time. I'll share my exciting package with you next time. Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and listening to me chat about all of my creative projects. I'm hoping to start doing a little bit of some vlogs or different sorts of videos in the weeks in between doing podcast videos. So maybe some vlogs about books, some week in the life sort of vlogs, that sort of thing. I'm hoping to be able to amp up my video output on YouTube to about once a week, but we'll see how that goes. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I can do it, so stay tuned for that. There might be some other content coming out to my YouTube channel soon that is sometimes creative making things related and sometimes not. I have some big plans for making an entire video series about the Redwall book series by Brian Jacques because I just love that series so much and I just want to talk about it. There you go. So if you're interested in anything like that, stay tuned. Yeah. That's all I've got. Thank you again for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!